The webinar will begin shortly. Please remain on the line. The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good evening, everybody. We will begin the meeting shortly. Thank you for your time. Good evening, everybody, both in person and virtually. My name is Christian Gonzalez, Community Outreach Specialist for the Florida Department of Transportation on the Coral Way at Southwest 15th Road Roundabout Project. We are going to now start with our presentation to in-person attendees and to the virtual as well. The Florida Department of Transportation encourages public participation for this public meeting and encourages all colors, race, national origin, age, sex, religion, disability, and family status. Persons wishing to contact the District 6 Title 6 Coordinator, Nicholas Duran, at 305-470-5219, or write to him at Fdot 1000 Northwest 11th Avenue, Miami, Florida 33172. You may also contact the State Title VI Coordinator, Aldrin Sanders, 850-414-4764, and write to him by email, alden.sanders@dot.state.fl.us. Some housekeeping before we go on to the presentation. This meeting is being recorded. During the question and answer session, in-person attendees will be called on first, followed by virtual attendees. Virtual attendees will remain muted throughout the presentation. If a question is asked virtually, the attendee will be unmuted and may proceed to ask their question. To provide comments or questions virtually, use the raise hand button on your GoToWebinar feature, and you will be unmuted or submit your questions or comments in the question box you see on the right side of your screen. All questions will be answered in the order they are received and as time permits. Any questions not answered during tonight's meeting will receive a written response. We kindly ask that you keep your questions to 3 minutes to allow other attendees, both in person and virtually, to ask their questions. If you're having technical difficulties virtually, please write your concern in the question box. Si algunas personas necesitan traducción durante la reunión, por favor, comunicarse con nosotros. Ustedes pueden levantar su mano y pedir ayuda atrás del chat y un miembro de nuestro equipo lo asistirá. At this time, we would like to recognize any federal, county, or municipal officials who are present here with us today. Please stand or select the raise your hand feature on the control panel. I know in person here we have representation from Miami-Dade County Commissioner Eileen Higgins' office, and I understand the commissioner is here virtually. Thank you guys so much for joining. Are there any other elected officials virtually or in person that I may have missed? So to introduce our project team, here with me at the front, I have Francisco Gello, who is the FDOT Construction Project Manager. And I have also with me Raymond Vilado, who is the FDOT Roadway Design Engineer. And with that, we will start our presentation, and I will formally introduce you to our project manager, Francisco Gello.
Hello, good evening. Thanks for attending today's meeting to talk about this exciting project. Some project details that we're showing here in this slide. The project limits for this contract comprehends Southwest 13th Street, 3rd Avenue, Coral Way, and 15th Road. The start date for this project will be October 17th, next Monday. And the estimated completion day, it'll be around summer 2023. The project budget is around $2.7 million. Currently, 13th Street, Coral Way, east of the intersection, carries around 26,500 vehicles per day, while Southwest 3rd Avenue, Coral Way, west of the intersection, carries an estimated amount of 30,500 vehicles per day. Movements throughout the intersection results in a very skewed approach, unconventional geometry, and provides minimal opportunities for pedestrians to safely cross the road. The existing intersection alignment currently prohibits several vehicular movements. Eastbound, Southwest 3rd Avenue, Coral Way, to northbound on Southwest 3rd Avenue and Southwest 15th Road. Another one is from westbound Southwest 13th Street and Coral Way to southeastbound on 15 Road. And the third one is southbound 3rd Avenue to eastbound either 13th Street or westbound 3rd Avenue Coral Way. Upon the completion of various traffic studies conducted between September 2013 and August 2017, it was concluded that the preferred alternative would be a roundabout with metering signals, providing this way traffic greater access to the immediate area and improving the pedestrian mobility. So the scope of work for this contract includes reconstructing obviously the existing intersection into a roundabout, installing high emphasis crosswalks, installing new drainage structures, removing on-street parking along 3rd Avenue, north of 15 Road, replacing existing high-pressure sodium lights with LED, and installing new decorative light bulbs. Also, we're installing new pedestrian and vehicular signals, enhancing landscaping, and obviously repaving and restriping the road. In this slide, we're showing different alternative routes for vehiculars and pedestrian users that currently can be performed, but because of construction activities will be restricted. The yellow arrow shows an alternative route for any vehicle traveling southeastbound on 15 Road and trying to access the south leg on 15 Road. Basically, vehicles will be detoured through Southwest 4th Avenue, then 18 Terrace, then Coral Way, and finally southbound on 2nd Avenue. The blue arrow, this one right here, shows an alternative route for any vehicle trying to access the northbound on 3rd Avenue and that are traveling westbound on 13th Street. Basically, vehicles will be detoured through the northbound on 2nd Avenue, then they'll have to make a left on 12th, and either you can travel southbound on 2nd, either for local access, or northbound on 2nd Avenue. So during the phase 3 of the maintenance of traffic, the yellow arrow, I don't know, you can see it here? Yes. Mm-hmm. So the yellow arrow shows an alternative route very similar to what we have on phases 1 and 2 for any vehicle traveling on the southeastbound on 15 Road and trying to access the south leg of 15 Road and 13th Street. So again, vehicles will be detoured through Southwest 4th Avenue, and in this case, through 18 Road, and finally Coral Way. Truck traffic will be detoured through local roads, and access to local businesses and residential property will be maintained during the whole life of the project. So this intersection is proposing metering signals on 3 of the approaches of the roundabout. We have one on southeast and on the southeastbound on 15 Road, another one on the northeastbound of 3rd Avenue, Coral Way, and the third one is on the southbound of 3rd Avenue. It's important to kind of note that these approaches would remain on green and will only turn red when we're with 2 particular scenarios occur. Traffic gets backed up from 2nd Avenue, eastbound movement, and or when any pedestrian actuates the pet post, so trying obviously to go across the road.
Thank you, Francisco. So some of the things we are going to be expecting during construction, please make note of uneven lanes throughout, excuse me, I'm sorry, traffic shifts and uneven surfaces during construction phases 1 and 2, and even 3. Please make note of temporary traffic shifts and uneven surfaces throughout the project corridor. As far as detours, although we do have pedestrian and vehicular detours implemented, excuse me, I'm sorry. During construction, please ask the public to make sure that they follow all posted signage and use caution when traveling through the work zone. As Francisco mentioned earlier in his presentation, access to both residents and businesses will be maintained at all times. As far as noise is to be expected during all construction activities. Dust and debris, we will ensure that our contractor cleans up any dust and debris that's left behind within the active work zone. In addition to both pedestrian and vehicular detours, travel lanes and sidewalks shall be closed only during non-peak hours on non-event days. Those non-peak hours are 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. on weekdays and weekends, and 9 p.m. to 5:30 a.m. Sunday through Thursday nights. Again, please note that all construction activities will occur in phases to minimize the impact to the community. Lane closure information will be posted weekly on the department's website, fdot.miamidade.com. And some additional information and tips on how to access roundabouts. Roundabouts have been shown to reduce injuries and fatalities by up to 80% and are designed to travel in a counterclockwise direction. Before entering the roundabout, we ask drivers to know which way they want to go first before entering the roundabout. Once in the roundabout, drivers must yield to other traffic, pedestrians, and bicyclists coming through the area. We ask motorists do not change lanes or stop within the roundabout. And please obey all posted signs and speed limit. Additional information regarding roundabouts can be found at fdot.gov/agency-resources/roundabouts. And as far as community outreach, our outreach consisted of door-to-door distribution to all businesses in and around the corridor. We're having the mail house distribution, which those who are attending this meeting did receive or should have received a postcard indicating that this meeting was happening both in person and virtually. And we've had briefings with both elected officials and special groups to ensure that all aspects of this project were met and everybody was notified properly. And as far as electronic and digital distribution, we're going to be using Constant Contact as our mass mailer system and also general email communication. And all this information that we're presenting here today can be found on our project website, including the presentation you see behind me, all the reports, updated lane closure information, and the public can also sign up to receive email updates directly from our website. And we do encourage the public, both virtually and in person, to sign up for email updates so that the entire community and the entire public is kept up to date and in the know with what's going on regarding this project. And again, just some general housekeeping rules for our virtual attendees. Again, this meeting is being recorded. During the question and answer session, which will begin shortly, in-person attendees will be called on first. Virtual attendees will remain muted throughout the presentation, and if a question is asked virtually, the attendee will be unmuted and may proceed to ask your question. To provide comments or questions virtually, use the raise your hand button in the GoToWebinar feature on your right-hand side, and you will be unmuted, or submit your question via the question and comment box you see again on your right-hand side. Please remember that all questions will be answered in the order they are received and as time permits. Any questions not answered during tonight's meeting will receive a written response. We kindly ask that you keep your questions to a 3-minute minimum, 3-minute max, to ensure all participants and attendees can ask their questions clearly with enough time. And for technical support, if you're having any technical issues, please make them note in the question and comment box. And for additional information, again, like I introduced myself, my name is Christian Gonzalez, Community Outreach Specialist for the Florida Department of Transportation. If you have any questions or comments related to anything regarding this project, my information is 786-837-4884. And you can also reach me by email at csgonzalez@corodino.com. And you may also contact our project manager, Francisco Giedo, at 305-619-7144, or our project administrator, Milan Mansuri, at 305-986-9530. And one more thing before we start our question and answer session. We want the public to know about our Drive Safe initiative this month, which is Target Zero. With that, we will open the floor now to our in-person attendees. I have Mr. Kurt Kaminer. Kurt, please proceed. Hold on. I'm sorry. Let's turn the mic on.
Perfect. 1, 2. Yep. Okay, thank you very much. Kirk Aminer. I just wish to make I'm very glad to see that Fdot is designing a roundabout at this location. I mean, ever since I was a child, I've always considered this intersection a quote kill box unquote. That said, I'm a little bit concerned to see that it's being done more as a rotary, that is with a dual lane setup within the roundabout. I know that obviously not always do crash reports necessarily show that dual lane roundabouts necessarily have crashes, but let's say the one on Coral Gables at Segovia and Coral Way might be a good one to look at for the fact that it doesn't necessarily calm traffic. And of course, working towards Target Zero, working towards complete streets, it's a little bit of a concern. Also, speaking of complete streets, I'm a bit concerned to see that the unfortunately unprotected bike lane that goes from Coral Way through this intersection, by virtue of the pork chop cut that's been put into the design because of this dual lane setup, actually removes that one connection that connects basically down 15th Street straight to the underline. And those are just my concerns. And I realize that the project has been through development since 2013, but we have a lot more micromobility now, and I believe it would be advantageous both for Fdot and for everybody who uses this road to take a quick step back to reevaluate the design, perhaps tweak it just a little bit for the traffic that we have now. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt. Now we have representation from, Commissioner Higgins is online. And Commissioner Higgins, your mic is being unmuted. Commissioner Higgins, can you hear?
Yeah, I can, Christian. Can you hear me?
Ma'am, we can hear you loud and clear. How are you?
I'm very good. I'm a long way away from you. I'm in Seattle at the American Public Transportation Association meeting, so it's a lot colder here than it is back home. I just wanted to, for the folks online and also the folks in person, give a little bit of background on how we all collaborated to make sure we had a traffic circle here. This is one of the most dangerous intersections in all of District 5, the area of the county that I represent. Every time we're meeting with the City of Miami Police, the number of traffic accidents here, both serious and minor, are high on their list for something to be concerned. And I have worked since the beginning to make sure that not only did we get a traffic circle here, but also that we got it accelerated because we are continuing to have accidents. We've actually just built a school, which is something that's very, very near and dear to the hearts of the folks in the urban core, that we don't have enough school seats. And we really need to make sure around this crazy 5, 7, I don't even know how many corners of intersection that we're able to use a traffic circle to slow them, to slow these cars down. And also for our neighbors in the roads, they're literally almost trapped in their neighborhood to try to get out and make, whether it's a right turn or a left turn. Folks are going too fast and the left turn is pretty much impossible. So we did look at, do we want to do signalized intersections here, and felt that that could make the traffic flow worse, but it also meant for pedestrians, the waiting for numerous traffic signals to turn green for you to get across the street safely would have been an incredibly lengthy period of time. And so I was pleased when Fdot said they would work on a traffic circle for us, particularly for our friends in the roads neighborhood associations, both of the roads neighborhood associations that have been wanting this for a very long time. I realize we're going to receive some comments tonight, and I certainly hope that FDOT and we should have some of our own Department of Transportation and Public Works folks in the room for you. We'll certainly look at any suggestions, but we need this traffic circle. We need a traffic circle soon. And so if we can accommodate any changes, we certainly will. But the goal is to get something constructed here that improves the pedestrian experience and improves the safety for vehicular drivers. I have been insistent, and FDOT has agreed, that everywhere where a pedestrian has to cross, that there is a push button signal that will force the cars to stop for those pedestrians. So we have the ability actually in this design for the pedestrian to be in control of when they slow the cars to a complete stop to be able to cross, rather than using a signalized intersection, which would have made those crossings lengthier. So we look forward to hearing your comments on this important project. If there's something we can practically implement, we certainly will. Thanks, Christian. Sorry to be so far away tonight, but we appreciate you gathering everyone together and sharing details on this important project. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. And now we will continue with our in-person questions. The next is Mr. Aaron DeMayo.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening, Aaron.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you for attending this today. And I absolutely agree, a roundabout is needed at this location. And there's three concerns, though, that we have about this. And just to be clear on how this all came about, and my intentions here is, I did not plan on coming up with something at the last second and throwing it at, a curveball at you at all. I looked at this intersection a couple of years ago with one of my interns from the University of Florida's Master's in Regional Planning course. I didn't realize that the timeline had been expedited. And then when we found out, we put our comments together and submitted them last month. So as far as the first concern, the two-lane roundabout design has multiple conflict points in it as it's currently designed, which research from other departments of transportation has shown make it less safe than a single lane roundabout. Second, there are existing bike lanes on 4 of the 5 roads leading into this intersection in both directions. This is a big deal. And as a result of the double lane roundabout, bikers and scooters most likely will not feel comfortable within the travel lane, meaning they will have to move to the sidewalk or shared use path. And the most recent diagrams that were shown didn't include even sidewalks. So I greatly appreciate the updated diagrams today. And I think that this level of diagramming would be really helpful on future projects. So I appreciate you guys putting that together. And I appreciate the 10-foot wide sidewalks as well, but understanding that 4 of the 5 lanes here have bikes and there's kids from all the schools nearby, I think it's going to be a little bit crowded. So, and then thirdly, the proposed plan does not integrate the northwest bound drive lane onto Southwest 13th Street, which I think is a big issue because there are a lot of illegal left turns being made onto that street right now. That's also not listed in the analysis documentation. And I don't think it's appropriate that we're told to contact the police department and for them to monitor this. They have other things that they should be doing other than monitoring this. So at the least, if this must proceed right now, if we could address that illegal left turn to make this safer so that it's only a dedicated right, at the bare minimum, please, if you could look into that. But as far as what we put together, this alternative design, I shared it with some colleagues and some neighbors, and it spread pretty quickly. I wasn't really expecting that. There was a lot of good feedback. I'm going to read you one of the comments that was made to me on a public feedback form I had. It is a driver's ed instructor. As a driving school in Miami, we have the opportunity to observe the behavior and understanding of Miami drivers about traffic laws. All caps. Unfortunately, we have seen that people don't have education while driving, end caps. What I mean with this is it would be complicated for people to understand and observe the design of the FDOT. In the other hand, a simple but working roundabout like the Peanut would help alleviate the traffic in a simple way. So to conclude, I do understand the gravity of what I'm requesting here tonight. And again, was not intending to throw a curveball at you. I do participate in other FDOT meetings and usually much earlier on. But my request is that you momentarily pause and review the document that I sent you all, just to see if there are opportunities there that you could incorporate based on these three safety concerns that we've outlined. I know you guys are very capable, and I'm sure you'd be able to look into those, even potentially while, as Commissioner Higgins mentioned, this is really dangerous at the moment, that part of the MOT plan could even be implemented simply to allow for safer movement through the intersection. Perhaps, the first phase of week 1 while you implement that, while you reviewed this. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to review what we sent you.
Thank you, Aaron.
Mr. Mayo, I think it's prudent on us to make sure that we provide you at least some feedback about what we've done thus far, right? So we have reviewed your documents. We intend to go over some of the technical issues that you've addressed at our meeting tomorrow, right? So a lot of us
Yes.
will be there. We'll provide you some of that particular information, right? So your three concerns, whether and first and foremost, whether you came at the beginning or you came late, we want to listen to your concerns. I'll address some of the particular items and some of the things that we've been actively looking at based off some of those items. So the first one is about the 2-lane roundabout having conflicts. We do recognize that each individual type of intersections has a number of different conflict points, right? Stop controlled intersection, signalized versus a roundabout, right? Single lane roundabout in concept does have reduced conflict points compared to a double lane roundabout. One of the key things that I want to make sure I notice, the most important part about the roundabout is reduce conflicts, but it's actually reducing the severity of crashes, right? So we do recognize, and I appreciate you bringing our attention that Minnesota DOT study that did identify, I guess it did an anecdotal study of 4 different roundabouts and identified potentially 2-lane roundabouts are not the same as 1-lane roundabouts from a crash reduction factor standpoint. But one of the key things that we want to make sure that we do continue to have these discussions is the most important thing, at least for us, from a crash reduction factor, is a reduction of severity and injury crashes. And we strongly believe that single lane roundabout and dual lane roundabouts do intend and do actually provide us those reductions in the crash factors, right? So we recognize that concern, and we're more than willing to continue having those particular conversations. The bike lanes on 4 to 5 entrances. So one of the things about the roundabout, about any roundabout in general, whether it's the state of Florida, Minnesota, Washington, is NCHRP, which is the guiding national and our criteria as well, always removes bicyclists from a roundabout. That there's no other option that we do have, and that's exactly to the previous point. It's the conflicts, right? You have the drivers who are actively looking left, who are actively trying to figure out their appropriate point to enter the roundabout. So as standard per NCHRP 672, we always remove bicyclists from the roundabout, and that's to make sure that we reduce those conflict points between bicyclists and pedestrians. As such, we go from a 6-lane sidewalk on Coral Way and other facilities to actually a 10-foot sidewalk, and in some locations we're even doing a 12-foot sidewalk, recognizing that we are going to have that mobility that is coming onto the roundabout. And the last one is to integrate Northwest 13th Street. We appreciate you bringing that to our attention. It was by no means necessary that we were trying to push it off to the side. We have had a number of conversations, both with our construction folks as well as DTPW, about how, and DPW, I mean Miami-Dade County Department of Transportation and Public Works, about how we address some of those particular concerns. We are actively, and we can share that with you tomorrow, we are actively looking at some minor modifications to that nose to see if we can channelize that movement a little bit better to avoid those particular items. So we're definitely, I know this is a quick interaction, but these are some of the key topics that we intend to discuss with you tomorrow at our meeting.
I greatly appreciate the thorough response. And, just to point out, though, there is a difference between, fatal responses and severe versus the smaller ones, and single lanes do reduce those. And also in a single lane roundabout where there's 4 roads with bike lanes here, bikers may feel comfortable using that roundabout with 1 lane. And since the adjacent intersection at Southwest 2nd and 13th pretty much already acts like a dedicated left turn lane because of all the yielding cars, kind of makes sense to look into that in the future. But I do appreciate you guys looking into our concerns, especially at this 9th inning. So thank you very much.
And we appreciate the feedback that you provided us. It was a thorough document, and we appreciate you providing that to us.
We just want Brickell to be safer so we can have a 15-minute city into and out of it. Thanks.
Thank you, Aaron. We'll continue with in-person questions. Next, we have Carolina Flores. Good evening, Carolina.
Hi, good evening. Again, thank you guys so much for all the work that you guys do and for being here after work hours. Of course, we appreciate it. Definitely, I have some concerns about this proposed roundabout. I live about 3 blocks away from there. I'm an avid scooter rider, as well as bike rider. I rollerblade, I'm on my skateboard. And dual roundabouts really concern me because I do not feel safe by any means when I am in a dual lane roundabout. Having to worry about a car that's right next to you and in behind you is going to deter a lot of people from wanting to go into the regular flowing lane, as opposed to a single lane roundabout where I just have to worry about the car behind me and I'd be going at a fast pace and I'd get out of their way real soon because there are bike lanes surrounding this roundabout. I think that would be a much better solution, and I really do encourage you guys to rethink that. It would be really, really important. I also want to advocate not just for the able-bodied people such as myself who can ride around and bike and whatnot, but also for wheelchair users. And that's why I also appreciate the 10-foot sidewalk, that they'll be able to use the sidewalks better. And it's more safe for them to also not have to worry about bikes and scooters on sidewalks because they already have to maneuver through signs, through pedestrians. And we want to be able to take care of our elderly citizens because all of us are eventually, hopefully, going to be old. So we have to think about the future. And I understand that we want to implement this now. I want this implemented now. You know, I live close by, so it is a very dangerous intersection. So of course I want it implemented soon, but it's more important that we do it in the right way for the future to come. So I really encourage you guys to rethink that. I think that dual lane roundabout is going to be very unsafe, and I personally wouldn't feel comfortable, and I'm very, very comfortable on the streets. I know that other people who aren't as comfortable as I am, they would not vie for it. It's dangerous to be on the sidewalk when you're going at, you know, a high speed of a bike or a scooter. So I really urge you guys to please rethink that. Do you have any questions?
So I can respond to and appreciate it, right? I think our thinking is in line, right? Department's mission and vision is safety, right? Vision zero, which I think Christian talked about, right? We are looking to make sure that we make our facilities safer for all folks, right? You know, the dual lane roundabout, so we always try to balance our vehicular users as well as this is a multimodal approach where we're trying to balance our pedestrians, our bicyclists, make sure that we're ADA compliant so that all type of users can particularly use this, right? One of the things that I failed to mention when Mr. DeMaio was speaking earlier is the other reason, right? And we don't necessarily consider this to be a full 2-lane roundabout. If you look at the westbound approach, that's full 2 lanes. But if you look at the eastbound approach, you have a bypass single lane, and then you have one circulating lane, right? So, but our concern, right, is really data driven. What we do have traffic analysis, and I'm sure we provided them to you, and those are things that we can definitely discuss in more detail. But the vehicular throughput through this particular intersection warrants the need for those 2 particular lanes, right, without creating additional issues in adjacent streets. One of the things that I will share with you just from a pedestrian standpoint, and this is just reading off of FHWA, we can expect a 30 to 40% reduction in pedestrian crashes through the use of roundabouts, outside of whether it's a single lane roundabout or it's a dual lane roundabout. So I think we're moving the needle in the appropriate direction. We're certainly open to having particular discussions about particular issues, but we do believe that the approach that we're providing provides, number one, the most mobility through the intersection, as well as a much safer alternative than what we have out there now. We're certainly open to discussing additional ideas if you have any.
Yeah, 100%. This is a lot safer than what is currently, you know, in our streets right now. But I don't think it is the safest. I did review Aaron's plan as well, and I was able to see the valid points in his proposal. I can't remember. I was going to say something, and I can't remember now. Kind of piggybacking off of something that he said as well from the driving instructor, that comment is that drivers don't usually have a good lay of the land and a good lay of the law. And another problem with the drivers in Miami is how aggressive they can be, and for them to have an avenue to be able to overpass you while you're on a bike or a scooter makes it really, really dangerous for pedestrians. And I think if we really want to be target zero, we shouldn't even give them the capability to do that. And that's where design really comes into play. It's that we have to limit the cars from doing this because they're not gonna do it. We have to stop them by design, not by morality.
And 100%. And I think, so honestly, and I truly mean this, I think we're looking at the same thing, because the reason we move pedestrians and bicyclists outside way before the roundabout is inherently because we want to avoid the conflict between the vehicles, right? We understand that we have to design our roads appropriate to who's using it, right? So we understand that if we put a scooter or bicyclist, pedestrian too close to a car when they're looking the other way, similar to what I mentioned earlier, that we are going to have that particular conflict, right? So the roundabouts in general, we always remove that particular conflict to ensure that drivers can focus on the movement that they're doing, as opposed to having to look to the right as well to see if there's a bicyclist there, right? We strongly believe that a bicyclist that's going on Coral Way will have similar type of connectivity, right? And as Commissioner Higgins mentioned earlier, you have those pedestrian push buttons, which are going to allow you that actual green light, inherently making it safer for you, right? Because you're ensured that that vehicle should stop. They are going to have a red signal indication, right? So I think I'm certainly open to kind of laying out the road plot and discussing some of your particular concerns, and we'll take it back to the office. Similar, we're open to those particular ideas, but I think we're in similar pages from making sure that we provide a pedestrian and mobility safety roundabout, and our biggest concern is really moving that one conflict point, so that drivers can focus on staying in their lane. Bicyclists know where they're supposed to be at, which is on a raised separated sidewalk.
Raised separated sidewalk, yes, I love that. But also sidewalks and pedestrians and bikes shouldn't necessarily be together. So I hope that's not exactly what we're planning to do, especially if there are kids around. That's more dangerous for them, navigating a bike. Let's say an elderly person is riding a bike. It's harder for them to stop and go, and it's dangerous for them.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's safer to be on the road. But if we do the dual lane like this, it wouldn't be as safe. So I do think that this is better for pedestrians safely, but I don't think that pedestrians and bicyclists and scooters should be mixed into the same crowd.
Understood. And those are definitely things that we can absolutely look at and revisit. We're more than open to continuing to have these conversations.
Awesome. I appreciate you guys so much for being so open-minded and, listening to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolina. Next, for the in-person questions, we have Ray.
Hello, hi there, hey everyone. It's nice to be here today. I was kind of surprised that there was going to be a Fdot meeting with the start of October 22nd. I go to quite a few of these in Browards and know they're usually 18 to 2 years out. So I heard about this project for a while here and there following the Fdot website, but I live up in Broward, but I was born in the Grove. But I saw that thing by Aaron last night with the peanut-shaped roundabout, and it hit me. I'm like, why aren't we doing this? So then I relooked at the plans and I saw what you guys were doing. And so there's just a couple of things. I think what I want to talk about real quick. So we're just going to lay the groundwork of where this discussion is, because I think everyone in the room, to clear the air, I think we're having a conversation right now about our goals as society. And we're looking at two different goals right now, two conflicting goals. We're looking at the goal behind you of target zero, where we are utmost the worst region in the US. There is 954 pedestrian deaths in the last 4 years, 1,000 pedestrian deaths from Pompano to Miami. So we're not doing something right. And you're hearing people come out right now, and you're hearing them say, this doesn't seem right. This doesn't seem dangerous. And what I'm hearing back is I hear you guys talk about warrants. It warrants 2 lanes. So if you guys don't know engineering speak, warrant is like what they use to dictate what the capacity is going to be. So what's our goal here? Is it vehicle movement or is it safety? And that's my first question. Are we prioritizing when we build this safety, or are we prioritizing vehicle movement?
So, and I think what's important to note here is that each intersection and each location takes a unique design that balances the needs of the community, right? We do not believe that we are designing something that is unsafe. On contrary, roundabouts have been proven to be safer. So
I understand what you're saying you're designing, and I agree, right? So this roundabout, if you're familiar with European engineering, this looks like a turbo roundabout that's common in Ireland and the Netherlands. They only use these double lane roundabouts when highways meet. In the motorways of Ireland, when they meet for on and off exits, or when you have two high-speed roads that need to intercombine, they use a turbo roundabout to push a lot of cars through very fast with reduction in safety. No one crosses. There's no pedestrian, there's no bikeways in turbo roundabouts in Netherlands or Ireland. They just don't exist. They completely remove the users. But in this case, we're putting like basically a roundabout on steroids and mixing it with pedestrian and bikers. And we need to be honest about what's going to happen in real life.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, again, virtually and in person, I do apologize for those technical difficulties. We seem to have our feedback online. So
Okay,
Ray,
so-
please continue with your
So
question.
just going and to kind of conclude what I'm saying, I just wanted to kind of get it on the record. It seems like there's multiple people who don't get paid to advocate are here and they're kind of explaining this looks a little dangerous. We know there's a better solution. It would be a single lane roundabout. It would hold almost the same amount of cars. It would still give you continuous flow traffic, so you wouldn't have backups into Brickell via the bridge and stuff and off 95, but it would be safer. So I'm asking, what are we prioritizing? Is it going to be safety or is it going to be vehicle flow? And it has to be a very kind of definitive answer because we're kind of in a point of affliction. Like we need to start making hard choices if target zero is a real thing. If it's not a real thing, then let's just remove it from the marketing. Let's just drop it.
So I'll speak to that, right?
Yeah.
Target zero is a thing for us, right? It's real. It's when we look at something, safety is our number one priority, right? Understanding that we have a number of different variables, right? With almost anything, any type of engineering solution, we have a number of different variables that we're considering, right? We have to be able to balance our pedestrians. We have to be able to balance our bicyclists, our freight, even rail, right? As well as vehicular traffic, right? So we take all of these particular variables and try to come up with the most appropriate solution that considers all those particular safety aspects. We recognize that as Mr. DeMaio mentioned, the one lane roundabout. I do want to bring to your attention that one of those variables for us that's extremely important is vehicular flow, right? If we create a vehicular flow problem through this particular intersection, we have the potential to create other issues in other particular locations. So while we may address that particular issue at one particular location, it may create a ripple effect at adjacent intersections because now people are trying to avoid that particular roundabout. To bring to attention what the vehicular requirements are, right? In the westbound direction, I believe, and John, correct me if I'm wrong, we have over 1,400 vehicles, I think, which one lane roundabout will handle at max 1,000 vehicles per hour. In the eastbound direction, we're a little bit over 1,000, right? So we're at that threshold where we know, and we're going to share this particular information with Mr. DeMaio. We know that we're going to create issues if we start removing particular lanes, right? Knowing that, similar to what Commissioner Higgins says, we're considering, obviously we've metered it, right? We have pedestrian signalization. Most of our pedestrian crossings are actually one lane crossing, right? So most of them, but they're all metered, right? They're all signalized, right? So you'll be able to push a button, right? And you'll be able to have your own separate phase, right? You'll be able to have the safety knowing that when I push that button, when I see a vehicle stop, that's a red light. I know I can cross. On other roundabouts, you don't have that feasibility of pushing that, right? You're gauging whether that car is going to continue in the roundabout or it's going to turn, right? So we recognize that vision zero, right, is something that we're striving to. This is something that is at our forefront, and it's something that we absolutely take seriously. And that's probably one of the main drivers of why we chose a roundabout, of why we looked at the roundabout. As we mentioned, and I don't mean to continue to say this, right? Roundabouts reduce severe accidents, roundabouts reduce fatalities, roundabouts reduce pedestrian and bicyclist crashes, right? So we take that into consideration when applying the appropriate solution.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely hear you. This, and I won't harp on that. And that ultimately answers up to the next point of induced demand. Let's say a little traffic builds up because a single lane is safer, and there's a little bit of more little slower flow of cars. That slowness of cars, people will slowly be inclined to walk, to bike, to scooter, to those businesses along Coral Way. If you need to go somewhere express, there's multiple I-95 entrances along that route. If you need to go anywhere super fast, there's no reason you need to be there.
Yeah. And look, I hear you, right?
So there's a
as
give
a
and
community,
take.
this is a big picture item,
I
right?
know.
And as a community, I think we have advocates here who are rightfully pushing towards that, right? But we have to balance what we know that our drivers are doing now, what we know our pedestrians are doing now, and we're trying to do our best to balance, right? As we're moving to complete streets, as we're moving to speed management, as we're doing one of the first roundabouts on a state road, right? So I hear you, right? As how we get to micromobility, how we move people more on feet and less cars, right? But the data, right? And we're going to share the data, and you're more than welcome to meet with us so we can share that data with you as well. The data that we're seeing is we're accommodating the bicyclists and pedestrians. we're accommodating the vehicular flow that we do anticipate for this particular area.
And this is my last question then, but then when you show me the data, I'd love to meet or discuss over email or whatever. Can you please provide the safety data for pedestrian and bicyclists with dual lane roundabouts and single lane roundabouts? Because then we're going to understand what the real goal is. If target zero is the ever encompassing goal of FDOT, like it's stated in the mission statement for at the state level, then we're going to have to look at those two roundabouts and say which one's safer. And then we have to consciously make a choice. Are we doing it or not?
No.
I'm just going to show this. This is it. This is a cartoon.
Absolutely.
It's called Roadkill Bill. This is like a little Aztec kid screaming mommy, and he's about to be killed right at the altar. Someone says, we have some peanut gallery commentary. Why do we have to kill kids? It's not killing, it's a sacrifice. If we didn't sacrifice kids, the rain god will be angry and the rain will stop falling and our crops would stop growing and we'll all starve to death. Ambulance loading up a kid hit by a bicycle. Why do we have to kill kids? It's not killing, it's a car accident. If motorists had to drive slower, it would hurt car sales and the economy would be upset and we'll all lose our jobs and we'll starve to death. Think about that. And I know it's a cartoon, it's a little weird. I'm not trying to go that hard, but this is a serious issue, man. There's kids out there. So that's it.
Thank you, Ray.
And in respect, you mentioned my name a few times during that comment. I'd like to make a response.
Absolutely, and I know
Thank
we're
you.
talking about the one lane roundabout, and by no
I
means,
wasn't intending to come back up, but you referenced me a few times. So
sorry about that.
regarding level of service, you referenced level of service quite a few times, and I acknowledged in my point that this intersection directly to the east already acts like a single lane left turn lane intersection because of the cars yielding to make that left turn. And on your website, you have a report that talks about what's called a road diet, and road diets are often paired with roundabouts. Since this intersection already acts like that, the real comprehensive plan, because you mentioned comprehensive planning when you said that the level of service would affect ulterior streets. I'd actually say this is not being comprehensive because it's not even addressing the adjacent intersection, which is a huge issue, which is what causes the people to go down 15th and make the illegal left. So we can't be, you can't be making statements that say it's comprehensive, but it's really not. So you acknowledged my name, so I'm going to come up and rebut that because it's really an incorrect statement.
So absolutely, and I think to your point, Southwest 2nd Avenue, we're actively having conversations between FDOT and Miami-Dade County Department of Transportation and Public Works to see how we address some of those particular concerns. I understand that comprehensive is a big picture item, but understanding how we break up our work program into individual little projects, smaller projects that we can fund in certain years, right? So we're actively looking at what we can do on 2nd Avenue on another project.
I appreciate it. And hopefully moving forward, we can look at adjacent intersections together, because if we only keep looking at individual intersections, we'll keep getting piecemeal things like this. So
Understood.
thank you for acknowledging the comment.
Thank you, Aaron. So we'll now move on to some virtual questions by our virtual attendees. We'll start with Ms. Daniela Rivera. Give me 1 second, Daniela, I'm sorry. Daniela, I'm sorry. While I figure out how to unmute your mic from my end, I'll go ahead and read one of the questions that we received submitted virtually. First question is, did the design take into consideration the new schools that are opening within a few blocks? Why not also look into incorporating 15th Road into a larger peanut-shaped design? And that was asked by Mr. Chuck Walter.
So to answer that question, our designs do consider the growth within the area, future vehicular traffic growth, as well as pedestrian mobility. We have accounted for these particular items. With reference to Southwest 15th Road, I think we referenced this particular comment earlier. We're actively looking to see how we can provide some modifications to Southwest 15th Road to address the concerns that were brought to our attention related to the illegal left turns.
Okay, while we continue to address the unmute feature on GoToWebinar, I'll proceed with another question, Ray. The next question is, will there be a contingency dedicated bike lane connecting 3rd Ave and 15th Road? Both of these streets currently have bike lanes and should be connected. And that question was asked by Alex Lemire. And excuse me if I pronounced the last name incorrectly.
Let me get my bearings. So 3rd Ave to the north and 15th Road to the south. So if you look at, and I am going to stand, right? If you look at 3rd Ave to the north, and I'm not sure if the folks online can see me, there will be connectivity, right? And this is one of the exhibits that we have showing how we can get a bicyclist or pedestrian from the northern side, right, through crosswalks, all the way back to our southern side. So we do provide for those connections.
Thank you, Ray. Let's move to another question that was submitted virtually before we go back into the online attendees asking their questions. Another question asked by Mr. Spencer Maddox. Have the crosswalks been considered to be raised crosswalks?
So one of the things that we always look at is a number of speed management strategies, right? In our criteria, we do have speed management strategies, which includes raised crosswalks. For this particular design, we did not include raised crosswalks. We do believe overall a design that we have provides the appropriate signalization signage in order for pedestrians to stop, which is not typical to most roundabouts. We typically don't have pedestrian signalization. So these particular crossings are not raised. It was considered at one point.
We'll go back to now the virtual attendees that have their hands raised online. Ms. Daniela Rivera, I have unmuted you as an organizer. I'm not sure if you can unmute yourself. Okay, it seems like we're still having some technical difficulties with the virtual feature with those that wanted to ask questions. And we'll proceed with some additional questions that were received via the questions and comments box. Another question from the same individual, Mr. Spencer Maddox. Have the splitter islands on the westbound approach and southbound approach been considered for extension?
On the northwest and
on the splitter islands on the westbound approach and southbound approach been considered for extension?
Saying this one here. This one here. So, and I'm not sure necessarily what I think it'd be good to know necessarily what the concern is from an extension standpoint. One of the things that we make sure that we do with roundabouts is that we provide the appropriate geometry to induce reduction in speed, right? And that's horizontal curvature, right? And as you can see, as we're approaching, we're making sure that two things, right? That we're providing the appropriate horizontal curvature and that we're providing appropriate signage for folks to get into the appropriate lane, right? So we don't want to extend that separation island too early past the intersection, because then people are making decisions much earlier than what they're accustomed to. We want it to be at the appropriate location. What I will answer without necessarily knowing the intent behind this particular comment, and we're more than willing to discuss more if you add additional information, is that that particular separator island was designed per criteria.
Okay, thank you. And again, I do apologize for the virtual attendees that wish to ask questions. We're still working through the unmute feature on the webinar. In the meantime, Ray will continue to ask some questions that have been received virtually. We'll start again from Mr. Spencer Maddox. What stage of plans is the project at, specifically the concept plans in the most recent fact sheet?
Well, as I said before, construction it's starting next Monday, October 17th. Gonna start with a layout, obviously, some surveying the area, setting up MOT. As you drive or walk the area, as of right now, you should be able to see the BMSs showing the start date of the project next week.
Okay, another question we have from Alex Larmier, and again, I apologize if I mispronounced the last name. Why can't we connect existing bike lanes on 3rd Ave to 15th Road? There is enough room for this and keeping the 2-lane roundabout. These are essential connections that will be lost. So again, the question again, I'm sorry, why can't we connect existing bike lanes on 3rd Avenue to 15th Road?
I think it goes back to what we talked about earlier about making sure that, number one, our design is consistent with national standards, and number two, that we reduce the conflicts between bicyclists and vehicles on a roundabout. On all roundabouts, we always remove bicyclists in order to avoid this particular conflict. It's much more difficult for a bicyclist to maneuver through a roundabout, and the safest approach is to remove the bicyclist from the roundabout onto a shared use path with the appropriate crossing locations.
Okay, and again, I do apologize for those virtual attendees that wish to ask a question. We are still working through technical difficulties to unmute those that wish to ask questions. Yeah, Carolina, please step up to the mic so that those virtually can hear you as well. Thank you so much.
To kind of backtrack to another question, how come you guys decided not to consider a raised crosswalk? Like, why did you ultimately decide not to do that?
So there's a number of implications, right? And again, it's about balance of design. There's a number of implications that happen when we do have a raised crosswalk. And one of those is drainage, right? It's the ability to move water outside of that particular roundabout, right? These particular raised crosswalks do inherently create almost a dam, right? So not only that, considering the different options, the different things that we were doing, right? So we can design around having that, right? We can add additional drainage structures. That is one. But considering all the different things that we have, this is a signalized roundabout, meaning that we do have the ability for pedestrians to push a button, right? So it's not your typical roundabout that you have to come down and figure out when you can approach it, right? So we're reducing approach speeds. We provide pedestrians the ability to push a push button and be able to cross. And we felt that the raised crosswalk wasn't the appropriate solution for this particular location. We do have, and I don't recall the exact truck percentage, but I believe it was around 14% of our vehicles are truck vehicles. So we do take that into consideration as well when we are considering these particular things, right? So overall, from a balance standpoint, we were addressing a lot of those pedestrian concerns, but we're also addressing some of the vehicular needs that we need for the corridor as well.
Yeah, I think where we're growing frustrated is where vehicular needs are coming over pedestrian safety. It just doesn't seem like we're changing our mindset on, just like he said, I forgot your name, but induced demand. More people are having to ride their cars and having to drive cars because it's the only viable option of transportation. And that all lies in the design of how things are made. And if we continue to build in this way and prioritize cars over people, we're never going to get anywhere. And we're going to continue building for cars and living in a world that's just full of cars everywhere. Like, I want to live in a world where I can safely go outside, and when I'm elderly, I can also safely be outside. And I think that there would probably be ways that you can drain the roundabout and still have a bump, like drivers. I see drivers all the time passing through red lights, and it has to be safety by design. So, I mean, the fact that it was considered and then ultimately removed, it's like, It's just, it feels like another one of those things where cars are being prioritized once again. We have to worry about how fast they're going. We have to worry about how many are going through the roundabout. We don't have to worry about the bicyclists. We don't have to worry about the pedestrians. We'll second guess them. And it's really frustrating. Just trying to combat this car culture mentality is what it really is. It's very much ingrained in our society. And unfortunately, our grandparents did a horrible job at creating this world, unfortunately, and now we're trying to create a more human-centric community. And it's just very frustrating to combat this type of mentality. I feel like there probably could be better safety features.
We hear you, and look, that pedestrian push button prioritizes pedestrians, right? Typical roundabouts do not provide that prioritization, right? If you were a pedestrian without that particular push button, you're looking to your left, right? Making sure that a vehicle that's 400 feet away, can I cross, right? As soon as we provide that pedestrian push button, what we're doing is similar to what Commissioner Higgins says, is that we are prioritizing pedestrians, right? Now, we don't necessarily have that raised crosswalk, but the pedestrian is prioritized. There's signage there, and there's signalization that's going to make sure vehicles stop at the appropriate location, right? It does have a push button, so it will identify when you should be walking, when you shouldn't be walking. So, but we do believe that this is a prioritization of pedestrians.
100% for pedestrians, but what if I'm on my bike? I'm not going to just stick my foot out and hit the crosswalk sign for a car to be able to see me. It's very difficult. And when it turns from single lane to a double lane on the roundabout, me on a bike, on a scooter, I'm going to have to navigate this, and right next to a Ford F-150 that is like double my height, and risk my own safety. And this is where we are all very, very frustrated on, because it does not feel like Vision Zero at all. It feels like Vision 50%, it just really doesn't. And it's a little frustrating. But I appreciate you listening. And I really do hope that you guys reconsider this. It's safer. You could say that it's safer than what we have right now. Absolutely. But is it the safest for people not in cars? No. And if we continue to build for cars, that's what our world is going to continue to be. And that's all I want to say. So thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll continue with some online questions that we received while we continue to work through the unmuted and muted feature online. Let's go with okay. Another question received virtually from Mr. Spencer Maddox. Mr. Spencer Maddox, thank you for all the questions you're submitting. His question reads, is there another location in Florida that have pedestrian traffic signals at a roundabout? I have significant concerns with violations to drivers' expectancy. What's the acquisition time for the signals? Why aren't RRFBs considered? If you need me to repeat the question, guys, let me know.
The procurement time for the traffic signal, major traffic signal components for this particular project, it's in between 90 days, in between 60 and 90 days. Cabinets usually takes around 45 days, and the traffic signal heads either vertical or horizontal takes in between 60 and 90 days.
Sorry. To talk about the other question about any other locations in Florida with these particular signals, I can't speak to it, John. So we'll call Mr. John McWilliams from Kimley Horn, who helped us with the traffic analysis and the initial planning study.
Thank you. Just to clarify, in Clearwater, Florida, there is a roundabout that does have signalized approaches where there's crosswalks. So there is precedent. And being I did the planning study for this project as a consultant to the department. We did consider RFBs on the approach, but we felt the safest alternative was to signalize them. We worked with DTPW on determining the best treatment. This also ties into the need to meter traffic going into town in the morning. to make sure that the roundabout stays free and clear and free flowing for anybody outbound. So it's kind of a win-win. It's better for pedestrians and it's also better for circulation at the roundabout.
Thank you, John.
I'm confused. So it's going to be a signalized. So you press the button and what happens? There's a light that's going to turn red.
As a pedestrian, you press a button and you have an approach signal that will turn red for vehicles.
And what if we go from one side to the other? What are we looking at in total second wise?
I'm not sure what the signal operation plans is. That's something that we can definitely provide you after.
Oh yeah, because that's a big part. If we're going to call it a multimodal thing, I'm sorry, I thought it was flashing beacons that they would basically be given equal priority, but this is completely not pedestrian prioritized. If we're understanding that there's a multiple sequences that people have to wait through to walk to the other side. I mean, do you guys have a rough estimate of how long these lights will be, and how long the wait will be upon like activation and pressing the button?
So it's pedestrian actuated, right? So what's going to happen?
So it's instant.
So
it's
there's
instantly starts the sequence to turn red.
so I'll repeat what Tej said so the folks online can say, right? So it is pedestrian actuated, meaning just to give you an example, right? So this particular approach, if you're heading in the eastbound direction, right, you see the stop bar.
Mhm.
There are signals right here, right? So as a pedestrian, if I'm standing here, I am going to have a push button. If I actuate that push button, the sequence of operations will be activated that will switch this green light that we have here. It is going to switch it to red. As soon as that red signal, the vehicles get a red signal, then we have a pedestrian signal here that's going to switch from the orange stop sign to the white walk sign, right? So it will always have, for pedestrians, there will always be a holding walk sign until they push that push button, and that's going to change the signal operations on the approach.
I understand how walking signals work. I'm asking about the sequence timing. That's super important information. That's almost like pedestrian flow count as equal as like vehicle flow count.
We're certainly willing to provide you the information we have. I don't have the operations, but we do provide the minimum. I think Francisco was going to mention.
The timings are provided by Miami-Dade County Traffic Signal Division, and towards the implementation or the modification of the controller, we'll request these times to the county. We won't have any problem sharing those with you. I'm sorry.
So what's Miami-Dade's count? Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you guys,
I'll repeat
if
a
you guys
question that I
wish
heard
to
about-
ask, I'm sorry, Ray, if you guys wish to ask questions, please come up to the mic.
So two questions from the audience is number one, someone asked, why isn't the county here to address it? I think someone's going to follow me from the county. And the second, there. Okay.
Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us.
Well, yes, it's true. Miami-Dade County does control the signals and the timing of the signals with the pedestrians as well. So what actually does happen is once the project is completed and based on volumes of pedestrians crossing, we identify the amount of time necessary for the pedestrians to cross the intersection. Typically, once you push the push button to start, it only takes a matter of seconds before you get that walk sign. So it goes to red and the pedestrian is able to cross the intersection. You're not looking at minutes, you're looking at just a few seconds to get to that point.
You want to guarantee into the future that the sequence doesn't change, the timing doesn't change?
As
like mandate, at least for this intersection, that it's always like 5 seconds or less?
as in the future, the Miami-Dade County is always adjusting those signal timings and those pedestrian timings. So as those volumes increase, those times are adjusted.
But potentially, people might find this intersection a little dangerous and might walk a little less. And then you have a negative feedback loop where you have less people walking, and hence you're going to see lower pedestrian counts, and hence you're going to see longer cycle lengths on the sequencing, unless I'm missing something. So it seems like it could have a super fast negative
Yeah.
feedback loop.
Tej, which is our project engineer, I think you wanted to mention something.
Yeah, the thing is, this is only a pedestrian actuated signal. It is not meant for, it doesn't have a timing for the vehicles. It is not like a regular signal. So only when a pedestrian presses it, it will provide the time for the pedestrian for each location, for each leg. And there are timings in our plans if you want to see them, and we can show you later if you want. And for each leg, there are timings on how many seconds it's providing. And of course, which will be managed by the county, but it is only dedicated to the pedestrian. So there is no one you're competing with. The pedestrian is not competing with anybody else. So it's the time for you, for the pedestrian to take that time and walk, which is as per the standards, FDOT standards. So nobody's competing with anybody. Pedestrians have their own time.
No, I'm not saying how long do you have to walk across. I understand it's enough time to walk across. I'm saying how long is the waiting upon actuation of the button? It's always
It
going to be
says-
immediate.
From what I'm seeing here, it says 4 seconds, if I'm not wrong.
Before
If I'm reading it right.
before the actuation starts. So you're looking at just a matter of seconds.
Speaking to the, I'm sorry, speaking to the mic, sir, I'm
So
sorry.
you're always looking at just a matter of seconds. And Miami-Dade County will always prioritize the pedestrian crossing over the vehicular specifically at this intersection, because you have the schools, you have a lot of volumes of pedestrian and bicycle use.
So will Miami-Dade guarantee that it stays 4 seconds or less? Can you guys put a guarantee on it? Because there's a traffic actuation signal on US 1 that used to press it on, it's in between 22nd Ave and 27th Ave. It's like the safest place to cross US 1, and FDOT reduced the timing on it. So I know these sequences can change rapidly, and it's a very little thing that no one notices, but it makes walking and biking way harder.
So look, we have the plans that we're open to showing you. Mike Sodi and his team handle a lot of the timings through DPW, right? We can ensure you that this is a pedestrian signal, it's not a regular vehicular signal. And we're more than willing to sit with you after and kind of walk you through it. We're more than willing to provide you an email of how we typically do that, what the typical timing would be, but we would not violate any of the national criteria, which considers walking time, which considers the amount of time that you actually have to cross.
It's a little, okay, I get it, but
The guarantee is the pedestrian will be prioritized. That would be the guarantee.
I know, but it's like a breach of a guarantee because we're already not prioritizing the pedestrian, right? Like prioritizing the pedestrian would have raised crosswalks and all these other things we've talked about. So we're already going into this with like an extra negative, and now I'm getting the guarantee is that we're going to prioritize the pedestrians, but everything up until this point hasn't prioritized the pedestrians. So it's a tough
I
thing
respectfully
to
disagree.
hear. It
Alright,
doesn't
so
really make sense.
I think we are prioritizing pedestrians where we're more than willing to, we have road plots, more than willing. I will stay here till whatever time necessary to have these particular discussions, and we're more than willing to put this on record on meeting minutes. So we're more than willing to have these particular discussions, but I respectfully disagree. We are prioritizing pedestrians.
Thank you, Ray.
And why was this particular crosswalk prioritized over or preferred over a flashing red light? That's where I'm confused. Because I, as a pedestrian, prefer when I press it and it immediately starts flashing. The flashing signalizes to drivers like stop, and to me it feels more safe, more effective than just like
This
a red light.
is the safest option that we have for pedestrians, right? You're getting a physical red, which legally requires you to stop. Rectangular flashing beacons, inherently, people get used to them. Somebody presses it, there's nobody there, right? But legally, you're required to stop on red for these particular. This is the safest option we do have when compared to other alternatives.
Okay, I understand. And, I understand that perspective, and I also understand that it's a little concerning that hopefully it does not turn into a 10-second wait, a 30-second wait, because then that will just, again,
Yeah.
minimize the demand for walking and for biking.
So what I can say is Mike Sodi and his team, and as well as our teams, we look at our corridors on a 2-year, 3-year basis to make sure that we have the appropriate timings, right? So this is not something that we're going to forget. This is not something that I imagine will ever actually be decreased. This is physically, we are providing the appropriate timing. And I imagine there's going to be adequate timing.
Okay.
We can provide that information to you guys.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Kurt, please come up.
Thank you very much. Kirk Kaminer again, just for the record. I wanted to ask specifically because this is what's been discussed here about signal timings for pedestrians actually has been something that was discussed about a year ago at the new underlying crossing at Southwest 13th, where the delay between pressing the button and actually getting a walk signal was no less than 1 minute. And this has been put on camera. Now, my question, at the time, many people did reach out to the underline, and the underline, Meg Daly and her team, found, at least what we heard through them was that FDOT was responsible for controlling the signal timings there for the pedestrians. I'm hearing now that FDOT does it through DTPW.
Correct.
I wanted to confirm whether this is the case, throughout the county for this project, exactly what.
Yeah, holistically for Miami-Dade County, FDOT is responsible for design and construction. However, as an agency, we handle overall maintenance and operations in Miami-Dade County to Miami-Dade County.
So the signal timing at the end of the day is done by Miami-Dade County and Miami-Dade County only through any FDOT or DTPW designs within District 6.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, again, I apologize, ladies and gentlemen, virtually for those who wish to ask questions. I do believe now we have corrected the issue. I will proceed as before with Ms. Daniela Rivera.
Muted.
Yes, Ms. Rivera, and I very much do apologize for the delay. So please proceed with asking your questions and keep in mind the 3-minute mark to allow others virtually to ask their questions as well. Thank you, Ms. Rivera, for your question.
So I'll quickly, and not sure about not sure about the particular scenario. We do recognize your concerns related to ADA. I'd be open and please reach out to Christian if you'd like to meet with us specific to your particular concerns. Our designs and construction as well, our designs are designed to be ADA accessible, and by that we mean we're following federal guidelines and regulations, including the PROAG, including a number of different items, right? And Christian and his team won't be able to certify through construction unless if we have any ADA deficiencies. Now, I'd love to meet with you to really discuss some of these particular concerns that you do have. We have in our office, we do have an ADA bike ped coordinator, as well as in central office, which is our overall office. We do have ADA bike ped coordinator that ensures that we're providing the particular needs of all users. Our design is ADA compliant. Our design is ADA compliant, which inherently means that it is accessible. So I want to continue having this conversation. I think Christian, if we can.
Yes, Ms. Rivera, like I had mentioned before, any additional questions, because we kind of are on a little bit on a time crunch with the venue. So if you'd like to address any other additional questions or comments, please feel free to email me. Again, CS. Excuse me, repeat that. Yes, of course. So, yes, ma'am, understood. Okay, next question virtually. Would be Mr. Nicholas Duran. Mr. Duran, please, if you can, so we can make sure. Representative Duran, I believe you are self-muted. If you can please unmute yourself to ask your question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, sir, we can hear
Hello?
you.
Oh, hi. Sorry. Okay.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Nick Duran. I'm a representative here on behalf of Transit Alliance Miami. I'm also here to join the many other advocates who are speaking out against this proposal. You know, the two-lane design for the roundabout just isn't safe. We've heard numerous people comment about the design oversight for the illegal left turn off heading westbound on Southwest 15th Street onto 13th. That's an issue that again has been flagged. Yeah, we think that even if we end up not selecting the peanut design in the end, I think it's the most ideal option we have right now. We should be considering other proposals. We would really hope that you put this project on hold and really continue to consider and evaluate what the community has to say about this project, because right now, the support is not there. And this is not the most ideal project. This is intended to move vehicles, not people. So again, we do not support. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. We'll continue with in-person attendees and their questions. Next, we have Mr. Ricardo Ampudilla.
Yes, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, Ricardo, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. And apologies for this, but I didn't catch the name of the gentleman in the white shirt and tie. I missed his name. I'm sorry.
Oh, Ray, sorry. I heard Ray, and I know he's Ray too, so I'm like, what are we talking about? Sorry, Raymond Delito.
Raymond Delito, thank you, sir. Very nice to meet you. And thank you all for making the time. Let me just quickly introduce myself. My name is Ricardo Ampudia. I am a board member of Brickell Advocates, which is a group composed of dozens of members who are neighborhood residents in Brickell. So I am one of their board members, and I can speak here representing them. As you can see, sir, there is a lot of discontent with the current design. I want to make clear that we all commend you and your team for choosing to implement a roundabout. We all agree that that is a superior choice to the current design, but we all think, and this is my organization talking, we all think that we can do better than the current proposed design. As it stands, we feel that the current two-lane design is a missed opportunity to really build something better. And I know, sir, that we are going to meet tomorrow to go over some specifics. But I did want to do my job as a board member and voice those in the current public meeting. So specifically, our group is concerned that the current design uses too many car lanes and it doesn't prioritize pedestrian movement. I know you vehemently disagreed with this point earlier, but I will show you in a moment what exactly I mean. So we believe that we haven't heard a specific justification for why we need 2 lanes in this roundabout as opposed to only 1 lane in this roundabout. We haven't heard specifically, for example, that traffic volumes require a 2 lanes in this roundabout. And even if they did, really, we have to ask ourselves, what is it that we prioritize in this location, especially considering, as Mr. De Mayo and a few others before me highlighted, that there is a school just a few blocks away on 13th Street. And just as importantly, there are businesses located less than a block away from this roundabout. So even if there were high levels of traffic volume, which there aren't, that still wouldn't be necessary to justify using a 2-lane roundabout in our view. If we are truly trying to prioritize pedestrian movement, which Mr. Alito, a moment ago, you made it a point to show, to make that that you are prioritizing pedestrian movement. And if you give me a second here, if you look at the current proposed design, if you look at the northeastern corner of the roundabout, for example, on the sidewalk, I will show you how the current design, in my opinion, does not prioritize pedestrian movement. So say, for example, that you are on the northeastern sidewalk of this roundabout system, in that sidewalk. And if you want to cross to the sidewalk directly south of the roundabout. So right now, if you look at the design, at the diagram of the current proposed design, it does not allow a pedestrian to directly be able to cross from that northeastern sidewalk to the southern sidewalk. So this is just one example, sir, where your current proposed design does not prioritize pedestrians. But that pedestrian would need to go through at least 2 crosswalks almost half a block away in either direction, in the eastern direction, or if that person wants to go towards the west, they would have to cross 3 different crosswalks just to get to that southern crosswalk. Does that make sense, sir? Are you following me so far?
Yeah. So I'm following. So
okay. And let me see. Moving on to my next point. Like I stated before, this is an area with. Yes, go ahead.
No, I was just saying that to allow for others on the virtual queue to ask their questions, and we do have time constraint with the venue.
Okay, I'm wrapping up. So if you just give me a moment, I'll finish my last point, and that'll be it.
Thank you.
So as I stated before, this is an area with multiple businesses, and this is a very important point. There are multiple businesses in this area, and businesses are part of our Brickell Advocates group, business owners specifically. And many of them are concerned that in general, including in this proposed roundabout design, we are using too many car lanes. And what happens when you do that? When you don't prioritize pedestrians by using too many car lanes, then residents will continue to feel uncomfortable walking in that area, which will hurt pedestrian traffic, which will hurt business profitability, and it will hurt tax revenue for the state. This is our position. So just to finish up, sir, we as Brickell advocates, our organization strongly encourages you to consider a single lane roundabout system similar to what Mr. DeMayo has proposed, which also addresses the illegal left turn design instead of simply relying on enforcement. Safety has to be by design and not through enforcement, which is proven to be ineffective. So that is all of my comments, sir. I look forward to tomorrow's meeting, and thank you for letting me show these points.
Thank you, Mr. Apadilla. Thank you, sir. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have time for 2 more questions from our virtual audience. I will now be unmuting Dr. Ori Eisenberg. Dr.
Hi.
Eisenberg, proceed.
Yes, can you gentlemen hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you loud and clear.
Hi, very well. Good evening. Good evening. So first of all, thank you very, very much for giving from your time. It's greatly appreciated. And I want to second the thought of, yes, the roundabout is definitely the solution for the congestion and problems in traffic in that area. I just wanted to reiterate the fact, yes, mobility for pedestrian is important. My point is more towards traffic. Traffic driving from Southwest 15th Road is currently forced to make a right turn. A lot of people make an illegal turn off of the Walgreens parking lot. It's very prudent that the final plan accounts for a left turn into the roundabout from the southern part of Southwest 15th Road. It's no secret that Brickell is expanding, and what used to work for the past most certainly is not working for the present. There are more buildings being built off of Southwest 2nd Avenue. Future congestion is definitely will be about, and I know your office is worried about it and looking into it. We definitely need to think of the most efficient, most safe, more the friendliest solution. And I'd like to just ensure that on the record it's shown that traffic coming from Southwest 15th Road, the southern part, needs to have a left turn, a legal left turn into the roundabout and access for the remaining roads. Thank you very much for your time again.
Appreciate the comment, Dr. Eisenberg.
Thank you.
As noted earlier, we are actively looking at Southwest 15th Road and that particular movement.
So now we have, excuse me, Ms. Lori Rosado. Ms. Rosado, I believe you are self-muted.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. This has been a great conversation. I'm a Brickell resident, and not only a Brickell resident, also an engineer. So I would like to thank you for all the explanations and everything that you have been able to describe to the public in this meeting. I think if you can provide more information as to the public so that they can understand, right? Because engineers do understand what you guys design. Engineers do understand what is the intent and what is behind it, but the common public do not understand, okay? So when they see, okay, we have 2 lanes for the roundabout, what is the warrant? That is it. What is the justification? And that is okay for them to go ahead and ask those questions. Now, on the concern on that left turn, yes, as a resident here, I can see that once you get to that area, you pretty much, if you want to go to the left, there's no way for you to go ahead and prohibit that movement. So if you can put either a curve in the area or something, you guys already mentioned that you're going to be studying how to be able to reprogram or redesign that area so that you can go ahead and try to, let's say, not allow it that movement. That's the only consideration that I think that your team should be able to relook at it. Okay, on everything else, I think the design is very good, design is correct, and you should move forward with your project with no delays. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for your professionalism. It shows. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rosado. And like I mentioned earlier, if there's any additional information that you need regarding this project, please feel free to reach out to me. This presentation will be made available online on the project website after tonight's meeting. And again, if there's any additional questions or concerns anybody in the public or virtually has regarding this project, please feel free again to reach out. My name is Christian Gonzalez, Community Outreach Specialist for the Department of Transportation. Phone number 786-837-4884. Email address csgonzalez2130@coordino.com. Before we wrap up, are there any additional questions? We have 8 minutes left before the venue kicks us out. Please step up to the mic, sir.
Hello. Just reading, removing on-street parking along Southwest 3rd Avenue north of Southwest 15th Road. There's a couple of businesses around there that mostly how we use that is to park there. So I'm just wondering where all that parking for those businesses will be reallotted to, or what's the plan for that?
So I can talk about the thought process. The need to provide directional access in that particular area required, right, for us to remove a number of parking spots. It's not a large amount. There are other locations, and I know this may not be the answer you're necessarily looking for, but there are other locations with on-street parking. There is also lot 30, which is I guess one crosswalk away. So this was coordinated extensively with the City of Miami Parking Authority. Related to additional parking, I think that's a question we'd probably table and take to the City of Miami.
Thank you, sir. And again, I just want to make clear of the contact information for this project. Again, it would be myself. Any questions, concerns, or comments related to this project, again, you can please address them to myself, Christian Gonzalez, FDOT Public Information Specialist. Phone number 786-837-4884. And I realized that I gave an incorrect email address the last time I spoke. It is csgonzalez@coordino.com. And with that, I believe I do not have any more hands raised online. Mr. Kerr, you can, if you want, you can submit either your question after or not. Okay, so we'll submit it after. With that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our meeting for this roundabout project. I thank you guys so much for joining us today, and have a great rest of your night.
Thanks, everyone.
I waited 2 hours, guys, to leave a question, to ask a question, and you didn't let me ask it. And it's not really appreciated. Yeah.
Please go ahead and
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. It's just, I work for a living. I took 2 hours out of my time. I was doing other things to listen attentively and share my thoughts. So, one of the things we've been dealing with storm drains quite heavily, and the stated goal from the mayor of this county is to reduce inputs into Biscayne Bay. The only way to do that is to increase infiltration. The P design does that. This doesn't. That's one check off that there's an opportunity for you to be intersectional with this project, resolve more than one thing. And that's one point that I would reference. All the input that you've given, minus the last person, which by the way, I work with engineers, so I am aware of technology, roadways, and what's available. And I would ask one thing, is there any willingness to change the current design to better align with not only the county's stated goals on resilience, but general inputs that the public have given you, and not just any public, informed public and specialists in this field? Is there any willingness and is there ability to change the current to design to better align with those stated safety concerns and the resilient goals that are stated within the current comprehensive plan? So I'm just asking because there are ways to better align with those things. And it seems like we're doing an economic impact statement on traffic flow versus human safety. And there's been, and as well as reduction of water infiltration, improvement of water infiltration and reduction of water into the bay. So those combination of issues are almost being pitted against each other, it seems, in this discussion. And you've been very nice with the people and placating them. But I would ask you, is their input actually informing the shift of the design? And will there be shifts in the design to better align with what the public is giving you, which resoundingly is to say that we'd like to change this design? Does that inform you in any way? And will that be informing a change of design? Straightforward question. I don't need thank you very much for your input. I need sort of yes or no. And that gives guidance that our input is actually informing where you take this. So I'll stay quiet now and listen.
So I think
I'm sorry, Ray. For the record, sir, can you please state your name? I didn't catch you at the beginning. I do apologize if I missed your
And
hand.
by the way, just as an input, I'm so gracious that Commissioner Eileen Higgins has pushed hard to Fdot. I know the history with Eileen Higgins and Fdot with Flagler. And I could tell you right now that I'm glad that she's had a lot of stick-to-itiveness to push for calming circles and things like this that would drive that. And hopefully Fdot can initiate these themselves moving forward as this being the sole circle in your portfolio. So I commend Eileen Higgins. My name is Albert Gomez, and I look forward to your. And I frequent this area often, 3 to 4 times a week, both by bicycle, walking, and by car.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. And again, I do apologize if I missed your hand that was raised.
Not a worry.
Mr. Gomez, I appreciate it, your comment. The reality, and I have all intents to be transparent with you. It's hard to put us on the spot and say yes or no, right? We've gone through a design process that started in 2013, right? I guarantee you, we are going to take these comments back. These are public records, right? We are going to look at your particular concerns. But at the same time, what we're asking folks to understand too is that there is engineering that is showing that we have these particular needs for the community, that we have these particular needs for vehicles, that we have these particular needs for pedestrians, that we have these particular needs for bicyclists, right? You got to understand that we are doing, and what we've done from 2013 to now is due diligence in making sure that we come up with the appropriate design. We're hearing you. We're actually, as mentioned earlier, we're having additional meetings with our stakeholders to make sure that we portray how we got to this particular point, but we also take that particular feedback and see if there's any alterations that are necessary to our particular project, right? So the second point related to I guess water quality. What I will mention is that we do have French drain that's being provided for this particular corridor to address the additional additional flows that we're anticipating, right, for this particular area.
I would just make one rebut question to that, which is many points were brought up on expanding the concentric circle that informs this design. I think that with the back bay study and walls are even scheduled to be in this area. There are actual walls that are scheduled to be built near this area to prevent flooding through the Army Corps. And there are a lot of things that are being brought to bear with federal funds that are going to intersect with this project in the very near future, within the next 10 years. And for us to not be considerate to those points And that means being comprehensive and expanding the concentric circle on how you design is missing an opportunity. And a perfect example of that is if it does slow truck traffic by putting a raised crosswalk with the signal, which is a double effort for prioritizing pedestrians. And yes, if it does do something with flooding, well, then you address that. But the reality seems like there's a bridge too far, and when dealing with safety, and I don't want to feel that FDOT is saying that we've done considerable engineering. The bottom line is we put money forward towards this to budget in engineering. We've reached a common ground that we feel provides a basic level of safety, meets it is at a minimal ADA compliant, which therefore I guess means it's a best practice. But effectively, we're pointing to other best practices that can be integrated into the project. And it doesn't seem like there's a consideration for integration or folding or revising the design. And yes, it would require you to go out and apply budgets to more engineering, re-engineering, and reapplication. But once you start surveying and breaking ground in 2 weeks, like you have on schedule, which I know your bosses are telling you got to keep schedule, and this program has already been expedited, means that there's no coming back. So all of these voices that have voiced opinions counter to this current design are for naught. And I just want to be clear that that's the case. And I didn't get a really clear answer. You kind of stated that you would get input, but it really sounded to me like no, the design is frozen and we're moving forward with this current design. And that's what I want to hear from you. Is the design frozen and are you moving forward with this design? And when I mean design is comprehensive design, not a frill or a turn signal or a left access turn in. I'm not talking about that. That's not changing the design. That's making an exception. Is there any willingness and is there any opportunity to change this design? Yes or no?
Mr. Gomez, I'll be honest with you. You have a packed my mic on. You have a very, very packed question, and it's difficult for me to understand the.
It was only one question. It was only one question. Can you change the design as shown right now? If whatever the public's input is, if the public's input is we want stoplights, can you change this design right now, or has this ship sailed?
We are actively looking at the comments that we have received, and we will make sure that we provide the appropriate engineering solution to the area that considers all different mobility needs.
Okay, so that's no, the ship has sailed. That's clear. Okay, thank you for the input.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Enjoy the rest of your night.